Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani, and we hope you're all doing well out there and certainly listening to the rules regarding social distancing, which is what we will be doing here tonight as well. We have a lot to get into, actually. It was a busy week in the NFL, so we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Tom Brady and his move to Tampa Bay, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is going to be the Steelers and what turned out to be an active week. And as I mentioned, social distancing. So I'm by myself in the studio, and we have two remote locations tonight. Andrew Fillipponi joins us from the studios of 93.7 The Fan, and Rich Walsh joins us from his home to make this all possible. So, Richie, this looks nice and relaxing for you over there. I hope you have a fun 30 minutes with us right now. Anyway,
they told us to stay at home, and I'm staying at home.
All right, there you go. Well, let's get right into it, guys, because there's a lot to talk about. The Steelers coming into this week, most of us thought there wasn't going to be much in terms of additions just because they were over the cap when this whole process began. Andrew Fillipponi, I want to ask you, assess this week for me. Not only did they make moves, to me they made some pretty good moves to solve one of their #1 problems, which was red zone deficiency. They were last in the NFL in producing touchdowns in the red zone.
Well, Bob, I can't see Richie. Is he in underwear? Is he fully dressed here for this? So hopefully
he's got the hair product on.
I'm fully dressed.
Okay. He got the memo that the dress code hasn't changed. Look, I like what the Steelers have done. If I'm going to give them a grade, Bob, I'd say about a B+ on what they did in free agency. I love the Eric Ebron signing. I think he's going to score at least 10 touchdowns in Pittsburgh as their #1 red zone target. I think Wisniewski is a perfect B.J. Finney replacement, and I think he can even compete for that starting left guard spot. I mean, he started at left guard for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Some things I don't understand. I'm still not sold on the Derek Watt move. What I don't get about it is if you're going to pay $3.5 million for Watt, why not pay the extra $1.5 million and go get a running back to compete with James Conner for that spot? So I don't see the spot. Richie, I don't see a place for Derek Watt in the offense. If they're going to go with Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald, those will be the two tight ends.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they have a spot for Watt in the offense, maybe a fullback if they use a fullback. They hardly use Nix, maybe because he was hurt most of the time. But I like the Watt signing. I think he's going to add a lot to that special teams. They're not going to fall off any by losing Matakevich. And I would give the Steelers an A. I really loved what they did in this free agent period. The Eric Ebron signing put them over the top for me. This guy can stretch the field. He's a guy that Ben Roethlisberger needs in this offense, especially because they don't have an Antonio Brown type receiver anymore. Maybe Deontay Johnson is that guy, but I really love the Ebron signing. I like the trade for Wormley. He might not be as good as Hargrave, but he's a big guy. They still have Isaiah Buggs in the middle there. I think their defensive front is pretty good. And, I give them an A for free agency this year.
All right.
So that means getting Ebron. I thought tight end would be their #1 priority in the draft, and now I don't think it is. I think wide receiver might be.
I still think you're underestimating Juju Smith-Schuster with Ben Roethlisberger back. Nobody mentions his name. I think that's a guy who can go back to at least similar numbers, not what they were, but he will be a big contributor. But I want to go back to something you said, Andrew, and Rich, we'll talk about Ebron in a second. I want to specifically talk about Derek Watt. I like that move. Art Rooney's been talking about, run game, getting back to success, third and short. A lot of that happened in the red zone. I realize Roethlisberger wasn't there, but Andrew, this is a guy who's a blocker. To me, it indicates a philosophical change that you may see Roethlisberger under center a lot more in the red zone.
Well, if you want to bring him in inside the 5-yard line, okay. I mean, how many touchdowns has he scored in his career? I don't remember L.A. with Melvin Gordon or Austin Eckler wanting to get Derek Watt on the field. He's not a Kyle Juszczyk type. I mean, that is an elite fullback. This isn't a Pro Bowl fullback. I think he's here more for the special teams aspect of things. Either way, guys, to pay that amount of money, to me, that's an entry-level position. Fullback and special teams player, that's where you fill out your roster with guys who compete for those jobs in training camp and the preseason. Those are late-round draft picks who you pay the minimum salary to. I just don't think Watt can have that kind of effect on a team. I'll say it again. I'd rather have – I don't feel good about their running backs. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't feel good about what Conner might be because of his injury history and what's behind him. And if I'm going to pay almost $4 million, give me somebody that can push him on the roster.
Well, Rich, go ahead on that.
I agree with Andrew here. I think they're going to need a running back. Best ability is availability, and James Conner isn't that guy right now. He's out there throwing logs over his head, but is he going to stay healthy for 16 games next year? I don't know if that's going to happen. So, I mean,
why are you guys so down on James Conner? Injuries are a part of football.
Maybe they can get J.K. Dobbins in the
Eric
second round.
Ebron had injury. Everyone who plays this game has injury issues. You're automatically discounting the fact that he could come in and get back to where he was 2 years ago. That seems to be one of those things people can't happen. He's injured. Okay, there are guys who've come back from injury. Ben Roethlisberger is going to come back from injury. Based on this logic, you should go out and get a new quarterback.
Bob, and guess what? They should bring in somebody to back up Ben. But my point on Conner, you're right. I mean, could he be the player he was for 5 or 6 weeks back in 2018? I guess it's possible. But remember when Le'Veon Bell was suspended and had injury issues? They had D'Angelo Williams behind him. Where is that guy? I'm not believing in Benny Snell football, okay? I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's a guy that can step in and be a #1 running back. Jalen Samuels, I think, is a tweener. What position does he play? Is he a running back? Is he a hybrid tight end? I don't think he fits. So I want somebody with some track record. Guys, I would have signed Dion Lewis. I think Dion Lewis would have been a great compliment for James Conner.
Devonta Freeman. I mean, I would have signed someone to compete with James Conner. Maybe Benny Snell is going to compete with him. But I wish Benny Snell was a little bit faster. I think running back is a position that they need to address in this draft, and I wish they would have addressed it in free agency. Right now, they don't have that kind of money to go out and get a running back. But James Conner, like you said, maybe the first 5-6 games of the 2018 season, but that's the problem. 5 or 6 games are what we were talking about. He missed 6 games last year, and in some of the games that he did play in, he was unavailable because he was hurt. He has an injury. He's injury prone, and that's a problem. Like I said before, best ability is availability, and you couldn't count on James Conner the last couple years.
All right, real quick, I need quick answers about Eric Ebron before we go into our next segment, which we'll talk about quarterbacks and moves that are made in the NFL and whether or not Jameis Winston should come here. But Eric Ebron has a history of what you guys are both excited, so am I. But he also has a big history of big-time drops, not just routine drops, some big drops. He also has this diva quality. These are all issues that came into play in Detroit, not so much in Indianapolis when he had Andrew Luck. So, Rich, I'll start with you. You're automatically assuming he's going to get back to 13 touchdowns 2 years ago, or what are your expectations of him?
I'm not assuming that. I mean, he had a down year last year, and it sounds like he didn't want to play, too, because he didn't have Andrew Luck as his quarterback. And I talked to some people in Detroit that covered the Lions when he played there, and they think the biggest problem with Ebron is what type of locker room personality he is. So I want to see what kind of guy he is in the locker room. But, hey, if he's the guy that we saw in 2018 with the Colts, this is going to be a much better offense. And it's going to be a much better Ben Roethlisberger, too.
Well, let's get it all out there. It's a former Pittsburgh sports reporter who's in Detroit who wants the Lions to win, and they never do, okay? So let's just be fair here, Richie. Let's just put it out there, all right?
Yeah.
The Lions were the problem, not Eric Ebron. It's not like Detroit was winning and he showed up and he created team turmoil. They're a joke of a franchise, okay? I don't know if he'll have 13 touchdowns again. I think that might have been a career year for him. But he's got pedigree. He was a top 10 pick. And I happen to think he's better than Vance McDonald.
I do, too.
And I also happen to think that Ben Roethlisberger likes throwing to big bodies and guys with a little bit of size. So that's why, Eric Ebron's history in Detroit, I don't hold that against him. And that would be like saying Garrett Cole, let's judge him on what he did in Pittsburgh. We know what a change of scenery did for Pirates pitchers, and I think the same thing can be said about former Lions tight ends.
All right, we're going to continue when we come back talking about quarterbacks and who has the biggest impact moving forward to some of these teams, and do the Steelers have room for Jameis Winston? But first, it's exciting when a team moves into a new building. That's certainly true with the team at #1 Cochran Hyundai South Hills and their spacious new facility, even though they only moved less than a mile up the street. But right now, for a limited time, get special grand opening offers in both sales and service. The new #1 Cochran Hyundai South Hills. It's now conveniently located at 3220 West Liberty Avenue. We'll be right back. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran. Go one better.
And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.